Olay to Spitbucket this week. We've gone Spanish, we've gone sherries. Now I know the first thing when people hear sherry, they're going to run and go and get their great aunt and say, here's a show for you. He's old enough to have dated your great aunts. Anyway, that or they'll go and find someone lying on a park bench and think that's what they should be drinking. Good sherry is one of the great wines of the world. And it is one of the most versatile because we are going from utterly bone dry to rich, intense and sweet. And pretty much everything in between.
Yeah.
David Ridge.
Yeah, hola, Ken.
Hola.
Sherry has made a rightful comeback, for sure. There are tons of people who you know, are into food and all that sort of thing never gave it away. But when you taste the basic wine of sherry, the Fino, and you know, for young people, I really understand why a lot of them don't take to it. They're quite strange wines. The virtue of them is a fault in in table wines. However, it is fascinating, and once you get into it, you're really stuck. So you break sherry into, you sort of think about sherry in three schools basically, and they're these water white wines which start life as a base wine, a little bit like champagne does, and then a second process happens to it. They take this plain base wine, in this case made out of the Palomino variety. So we're talking down near Cadiz on the Atlantic coast of Spain, a particular zone for it, Jerez, sherry in the English. You basically take this base wine and you put it back into barrels, and they get this floor, this yeast mat sitting on top of it. And what this thing does, with its big thick white mat, is convert alcohol to a compound called aldehyde, which is one of the essential smells. You could say it smells like aeroplane glue on the one hand, or cheese and peanuts on the other hand. It's whichever one you like.
We choose to pick the good smell.
We do. And then that sort of chews away at this thing for about 3 years in barrel, still keeping the wine nice and bright and white. And then once it's eaten a lot of this alcohol, they'll shoot more alcohol back into it. That's the spirit fortifying to bring it up to the right stage. And then they just basically bottle it off. For styles of wine a little bit later on, they're just variations of what I've just described. Then there's a further variation where the wines don't actually ever undergo that floor process. They're just barrel aged from that white start. And then there's the really heavy Tokay-like wines, and that's as complicated as sherry gets. The fascinating thing is what you can do with it.
What about Palo Cortado?
No, Palo Cortado is just a freak.
Fair enough. And also aged sherry. I mean, some of those aged sherries are incredibly complex, wonderful, wonderful wines, particularly to finish a meal. But we better actually
get
started. Now, Barbadillo, of course, is one of the characters in Lord of the Rings. No, is one of the...
well, it's the last of the great family-owned sherry houses.
Okay, it's one of the great sherry houses.
Is. And it's entry-level wine. It sells for about $23, $24 for this Fino. And they are an acquired taste, but once you've got that taste, you're gone.
What I always think is, I mean, a lot of people will come home from work, Australian summer, they'll crack a beer, have a beer, cold beer at home, or they might glass of Riesling, which is fine, beer's fine as well, might even have a whiskey or whatever. But think about having a bottle of this or this in the fridge and just cracking it, having a glass when you get home. They are wonderfully refreshing. They're just the most perfect, relaxing, wonderful drinks. Or as an imperative if you head out to dinner, a glass of sherry before you get stuck in.
And then, if you want to do dinner indeed, we've found, I use sherry quite a lot at home as my first white wine. For salty foods, for cheesy foods, you know, for a quiche or a salt and pepper squid. Some of these wines are just fantastic. They really are food applicable.
And we've chilled these first two. We probably should have chilled that one as well.
Yeah, so Fino Manzanilla, which we'll describe in a sec, and Amontillado, we would serve chilled. Probably
that's as refreshing as you could hope. That's just that bright, clean, slightly pear character, lovely texture. Just,
I see characters of cheesecloth, peanuts, nuttiness. A lovely winter weed we call soursop. I don't know if you have soursops where I come from, Adelaide. There's a winter weed.
Queensland, we don't let them across the border.
You don't get any wine at all. No.
Oh, don't start. And look, that is bone dry. I mean, and that's one of the problems is because people talk dry, drink sweet. That's one of the great sayings, of course. Most wine will have just some sort of balancing sweetness, but that's just searingly bone dry. And that's why you've got to perhaps get used to it just to a degree. The first time you try them, you think, what the hell? But when you get used to them, they are just clean and refreshing. Now, this is a fascinating thing. This is basically a version of Fino.
Yeah.
There's a sort of a triangle down there, isn't there? There's Jerez, there's
San Luca de Barrameda,
yep,
and Puerto de Santa Maria.
I couldn't have
So
said
the
it better
three,
myself.
the three
I
sherry
couldn't have said it
towns.
myself.
This is Manzanilla, and it actually starts life as the same
Yep.
wine as this. They
But in that village.
Yeah, so they move the base
town.
wine down to San Luca de Barrameda, which is right on the mouth of the Guadalquivir River.
And
Into these bodegas, into these big maturation cellars where the ground is really still almost soaking from the sea, which is nearby. And as a result, that flora I described before goes wild, and it gives these wines, it gives this Fino a Manzanilla character, which is this really amazing sort of salty
oyster shell, briny,
yeah.
sea breeze character.
Generally speaking, this Manzanilla will be this water white young wine, 3-year-old wine like this. This one, Barbadillo Soliar, is a bit different because it's actually nearly Manzanilla, what they call Manzanilla Passata. There are a number of funny little subcategories, and it's basically a Manzanilla that's almost begun to turn because
It's got a bit more of a dimension.
the strength of the floor in this barrel
Yep.
really makes the thing, it actually goes through this process for about twice as long. So this is actually 7-year-old wine on bottling.
Yet it's as fresh as I was
Yeah,
yesterday.
it's got that darker colour and deeper palate, which makes it so much more applicable to food. But it's just a bit of a freak in itself.
And let me tell you, sitting here in the Sydney sun with a set of lights that'd light up the sports ground, I reckon, this is perfect. When we get down this end, may have to fake it a bit,
Ah, well,
but
yeah.
this it's just perfect for this sort of nice, beautiful, warm outdoor weather.
Should we keep
Moving
going?
on, Amontillado.
Amontillado.
Now, if you go back in all the old wine books, the perfect match for Amontillado Oloroso, turtle soup.
Turtle soup,
Bastards.
brown onion soup at a gentleman's club.
Yeah, well,
and
that's brown onion's fine,
and
but
that's the sort of
turtle soup.
legacy the poor things have put up with for a while.
Have a look at the difference in colour. It's a beautiful orangey colour.
So Amontillado is just basically these previous two wines that have been, once that floor has died off, they're actually not bottled off, they're left in the barrel. So they just gracefully age. And that aging in barrel, as long as they're kept topped up, means they don't deteriorate. They keep a low ullage, which is a technical term.
Yep.
They keep it topped up so it doesn't develop
Well, the Solera
volatile
system.
acidity.
You can't talk sherry if you don't talk the Solera system.
Which is a series of barrels.
But imagine a pyramid of barrels. You put the stuff in the top one, it seeps right down through. And after umpteen years, you take out of the bottom one, you put in the top one. And it's not, I mean, that's a very simple way.
Each time you bottle off, you're getting a consistent result.
So you're getting a tiny bit of the very oldest material every time, and it just seeps through. So the idea is that now or in 10 years or in 100 years, what you get out of those barrels should be exactly the same.
Yeah.
That's the theory. Well, that's just, I mean, it almost tastes as though it's sweet, but it's not really. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's
yep.
just, it's got that richness. That
and
lovely
yet the palate's
bronze
dry.
character. It is.
They
It's
pick
that
up on
richness.
browning things. You know, mushrooms, they're really good for mushrooms. They're really good for pâtés.
All that sort of stuff. Absolute crackers.
Any kind of soup, you know, a Vietnamese hot and sour broth. These are
Yeah.
a dream with those. Peking duck, you know, little Peking duck pancakes it picks up. They're not just a sipping wine. They are really a genuine food accompaniment. These are the entry level really of real sherry, and you're talking about $23, $24.
Oh, yeah,
for
let's
that.
do the prices quickly.
Yeah,
Recommended.
they're 23, 18 for the half, 23, 29.
I mean, that is
29, I should pronounce those.
that's seriously good value, isn't it? Oloroso.
Away you go.
Look.
Now, Oloroso's, I guess, lets us talk about and explain the funny little quirks of sherry, because Oloroso is basically this wine that we just saw
Yep.
that never underwent the floor character. So it just starts as a base wine.
Yeah,
And
and
the
it's toss of the
cellar
coin
master-
what happens.
Yeah, the cellar master sometimes says, well, this is not going to take floor, or the minute he sees that it won't take floor, he just moves it aside and it goes into a Solera for Oloroso.
Yep.
And basically, the one other thing they usually do is put a little bit of sweetening material, which we'll talk about with the last wine. They put a bit of sweetening material, because what that does is enriches the wine, but the sweetness per se doesn't come through because of the extreme age of these wines. This would be, some of the material would be 35, 40 years
and
of age.
You're paying what, $23 a bottle?
23 bucks a bottle.
That is just wrong. A lot of Oloroso, as you said, some sweet material, a lot of Oloroso is a sweet wine. But
and you do need to know which one you're getting.
This is not.
No,
this is not.
And yet, because of that, it's starting life as a fatter wine in the first place, and then having that little bit of rich, sweeter material put in there.
You can understand.
It's got a richer palate.
Yep. Cream sherry.
Yeah, cream sherry's really.
English market thing.
It's an English market thing. It's basically taking something really simple and putting the sweetening material into it, not worrying too much about the age.
Yeah.
But again, some of those wines can be aged and be quite a collectible. Be quite important.
Look,
but there are a number of names that confuse the issue for the English market.
I mean, sherry has done its best to stuff itself up with its marketing, with no disrespect to the place.
It's true.
I love the stuff, and I can tell you now I've got bottles of Manzanilla in the fridge at home. The last one we're looking now at
this
Pedro Ximénez.
This one outsells the rest of them.
Is that right?
5 to 1.
Oh, you're kidding!
No,
that's cruel.
It is a bit. I mean, cruel.
Look, it's not to disparage this wine at all, but that's. I mean, have a look at the intense colour on that. Depth. You look at that and you know it's old material. Surely.
Yeah, this is Pedro Ximénez.
Yeah.
It's a different variety, and it's also the style of the wine.
For Real Madrid.
For Real, yeah. It's also known as black sherry, basically because it's very much like an Australian Tokay or Muscat.
It is. It's the closest thing I know to an old Muscat. It's got that rich sultana. Raisin character,
yeah.
Absolutely.
Figs in syrup, plum pudding,
golden treacle.
Pudding. Yeah. But this gives you that same dense Tokay-like thing with a zing, a hit of acid.
Nice clean finish.
Every good wine's has a duty to have a zing of clean acid.
I tell you what, there's plenty I've tried that don't have the nice clean finish that does, and that helps. I mean, running for me. Look, you've gone from the bone dry to the richly sweet. That's a nice 88, 89 pointer. That's maybe something similar, maybe a touch more.
I reckon it's a bit high because it's got that complexity and richness. That's
89, 90.
Sherry.
That I reckon is just about my favourite of the whole. I'd give that 92. I reckon it's pretty much my favourite of the whole thing. Depending on the circumstances you want it, that's an 88, 89, 90 again. I reckon. I just really.
I reckon that's about right. Yeah.
And that again, I reckon it's about a 90 pointer.
These are the bargain basement of real sherry. We should say that you can buy. You can spend $45 on really good sherry, and you get your money. They're fantastic wines. So
why don't we have those here today?
Because I moved from these up to the $100 ones.
You say one nasty thing about Man U and none of the good ones. Mind you should say a lot of nasty things about Man. Moving on.
Oh, I don't know where you're going about that. Be Arsenal supporter. Why would you talk about such things? So sherry is something to not treat as a curio anymore.
Get into sherries, seriously. Now look, what we'd love to hear is what do you think of sherries? Do you drink them yourself? How many times a year? Once a year, or are they regulars? Do they have a future? Are they an old dinosaur? Let us know. David Ridge. Thank you very much.
Speaking of old dinosaurs.
Ken
Gargett.
Thank you very much for what you've done.
Pleasure, mate.
Thank you from Spitbucket. Just remember, we spit so you don't have to. Cheers.